It's a beautiful world. You know, we were chatting here, and Emmanuel, we were saying, you know, it can go south or north, and here we are. Yeah, but thank you very much, Emmanuel Macau. He's the Senior Regional Technology and Data Manager at Masico. And he's a tech who is very passionate about agriculture. And at Masico, you guys are doing some amazing stuff. We'll go into that. I don't know, did you go up around Nairobi? Because in major towns, we used to have these SK shows, these agricultural shows. At one point, did you ever stumble into one, or this was a rarity?
I've been to the SK show in Nairobi several times. I think also from my early days in primary school, I was in Tala Township. We used to go at least every year. So I went 3 times in buses. So much fun. Those days we used to use Nyayo bus service. That was so much fun. And then I went to a school in Machakos, and I also, had an opportunity to go to that one at least 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
I don't know whether some of my teachers are listening, but they can't do anything right now. We used to sneak into the disco where we're not supposed to go to, but that was so much fun.
Yeah.
But one of the shows that I went to, I remember I saw a rat that had come from a shamba in Makueni. In Kamba, we call them walili. It's a big rat. So usually the one I've seen is like this small. But this was like this big. It was even making some funny sounds. Huge rat. And I was like, if nature can make things like this, I'm wondering what produce came out of that farm. Because if that is the size of the rat, then I'm sure the maize was even bigger.
Yes.
So I hope the farmer got abundant harvest.
It's interesting because even why I'm tapping into that memory is the status of farming in Kenya. First of all, when you see techies like you come into the agricultural space and you utilize the tools that you have, it is such an encouragement. But still, one of those olden days statistics still stands, that the average age of a farmer in Kenya is close to 60, 65 years.
60,
Yes, which is quite elderly. And majority of this country, our median age is close to 19, 20.
Yeah.
Why is agriculture not cool for the young people?
I think they don't see the value that comes from agriculture. I think also the way, and probably maybe I can use myself as an example. When we used to go to the farm, those days when we closed school, we used to labor a lot, sometimes during harvesting period, harvest the produce, and you have to remove all the seeds, like harvesting the maize. So there was some pain that was also associated with it. I remember my grandmother telling me, if you don't remove enough, you're not eating. So, there's that thing in your head that, why am I always doing this thing every other time? So one, I don't think the youth are seeing the benefit out of it, and they're seeing it's something that our parents used to do. But right now, when you look at farming, there are so many opportunities and so many places where you can actually make an income. For example, there was an extension agent who met in Kiambu. He does artificial insemination. He's a vet. But beyond that, he also realized that there are other needs that the farmers wanted. So, seeds, they needed inputs for specific things. They needed advice, agronomy advice, not just for the dairy cows, but also for different kinds of crops that they were having. So he tapped into that. But what he also did was learned a bit more about crop management. He ended up going to school again and came back to the society and actually started, doing extension services. And he's making an income out of that. The number of farmers he's serving in his community, think of him as a thought, like a thought leader, as an expert in extension services. And so he's making an income out of that. So that's one aspect of agriculture. But it doesn't really mean you have to go and touch the soil.
Exactly.
There's another one who, actually we met in Nakuru some time ago, and he was buying onions from different farms. That's still being part of the agriculture ecosystem. And he was buying onions in bulk and taking them to markets. And he had these vendors who were willing to buy from him. So he was able to aggregate onions from different farms around Nakuru and take them to the market. And now also, he ended up now supplying to people who know him, so homesteads. And within a short time, he was making some money, and he bought a pickup, and now he's supplying. I think the time when we met him, he was still in university. Right now, obviously, he's flourishing, supplying different types of foodstuffs. So the way we look at agriculture needs to change, even for the youth, and look at agriculture as a way of earning an income. It doesn't have to mean that you have to touch the soil, like I said, but what other avenues are there for you to make money? I know there's an organization that is training young entrepreneurs, they're called agripreneurs, to look at farming, different farming components like soil testing, visiting a farmer, giving them advisory, linking them to markets, and then collecting some data from the farmers to be able to get some analytics of the different types of transactions that we're doing. So if it's buying inputs, they buy the inputs through the agripreneurs. The agripreneurs will visit them on a regular basis. That visit is a source of income. If they recommend a soil testing company, the soil testing company will give them some commission for every soil test that is made. The benefit is to the farmer eventually, because the farmer will come to know that my soil is red soil, black cotton soil, sandy loam, but I'm missing some nutrients, I'm missing some things. And because of that, I should be able to put either a certain input that will now make my produce much better.
Okay.
So you find that these young people now have different ways of making money. And that's the agripreneur model that I'm talking about.
Definitely. So you really have to look this from a value chain perspective.
Exactly.
Most of the time there is a huge focus at the production level. But there's a whole transition. Talk about, even just logistics is a huge business in of itself.
Yeah.
But going back to the production, because that's the foundation, where the country is right now is that we are a net importer,
Yes.
Essentially, we import a lot of things, food included, okay? And looking at the potential within the country to be able to produce food, it seems we have not tapped into that.
Yeah.
And one of the areas that we see is if we are able to empower the smallholder farmer, then there is an opportunity to transform our food ecosystem in one way or another. Correct. Because that's where majority of the foods that Kenyans eat actually do come from. So let's start with the smallholder farmer in this country. From your observation and you working at the Mercy Corps, because you're pushing solutions that go towards these farmers. For smallholder farmers, what is, first of all, who's a smallholder farmer? Maybe we can start there.
So for us, the definition of smallholder farmer is a farmer who at least has between 1 and 5 acres, maximum at least to 5 acres. But it varies in different countries. But in Kenya, I think the way we look at it is between 1 and 5 acres. And for us, agriculture is mainly subsistence. We have, over 80% of the country relying on agriculture. So, and most of the agriculture is through subsistence or, local-based farming. So that's where we actually get now to the definition of a smallholder farmer for ourselves. At least a farmer also who earns, on a minimum $2.50 a day because of the output that they get. But that's not enough, it's not sufficient. So yes, they have small pieces of land, but you find smallholder farmers are also very multi-value chain. They plant or grow or keep multiple livestock and different kinds of plants. And the reason is for them to actually be able to have a way to earn an income on a regular basis. So if you're planting cabbages, you want to plant cabbages, but there's also a dairy cow there that is also going to provide for the household as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that regard, for these farmers to be able to optimally produce, there seems to be barriers to that. Right now as it is.
Yes.
Of course, one of the issues that we've seen from my perspective, which is very biased, being in the communication field, is there is a huge gap when it comes to information.
Yes.
So farmers and actual experts, we are working in silos, and eventually nothing moves. From your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges that these smallholders farmers face that is hindering them to optimally function as smallholder farmers?
You've mentioned one of them, which is access to information. So in the olden days, farmers used to talk to each other, and they still do the same thing. But the old ways of producing have changed. Seeds have also evolved over time. So like, for example, if you do potato farming, potatoes can only last a period of time. Let's look at it like maybe, let me make it a bit more scientific, like an atom. And a hydrogen atom has a half-life, if you're making a bomb or something of that sort. So over time, it dissipates. So it's like that. So a potato, over time, the potato that you grew, over time, it starts reducing in terms of I don't know whether to call it efficacy, or it just stops producing. It becomes old. And as it ages, the production reduces. Yeah? And so we need to be able to provide information to farmers about different kinds of seeds, improved seeds for their climate. Like right now, I think there's the new a seed, maize seed that is called Duma 44 that will last 3 months, as opposed to the old one that used to last 8 to, I think, 9 months. Then there's also access to weather information or climatic information for smart agriculture, especially. With the changing weather, with the changing climate, a while back, the farmers could tell. They just look at the clouds and they say, today it's going to rain, or it's going to rain the next 2 weeks, and for sure it will rain. But now we're not sure. The weather has changed, the climate has changed so much. And so we should be able to provide adequate information for advisory on when it's actually going to rain, when the farmer should put the seed in the ground, and then follow that with the advisory on what to do during the cropping cycle. So that's one of the issues that we are trying to address as well. Access to finance is a big one. It's also a very big barrier also for women actually to access even finance. Looking at another barrier that would speak into this, which is access to land, especially for women. And we see primarily that men are the owners of the land. And it was interesting to read somewhere that out of all the land ownership, around 1%, between 1% and 4% land is actually owned by women. So you find that even now those women cannot directly go and access financing to buy inputs, implements, fertilizer, and they have to rely, I'm not saying it's bad for them to rely on their husbands and all that, but it's still a barrier. Again, also the same barrier of access to finance would be banks don't have access, they don't know anything about the farmers. So they see farmers as smallholder farmers as very risky. They ask for collateral. Some of these farmers cannot afford even that collateral, so I remember there's a farmer down in Bomet who said, "You want me to take a loan, and then later on the bank will come and get my cow." You see, so there's also that fear of things that have happened, or fears of things that might happen when they take up these financial solutions.
Exactly.
Access to finance is also limited by historical data that banks don't have. They don't know anything. They don't have any transactional information. But yet, in the small chamas, there are those small transactions that happen. So they know how to transact and how the money flows, but that is not seen anywhere from a bank perspective. So they will always see them as there's no ability to pay. I think one other one is, like I've mentioned, climate. Climate is a big issue right now. It's a barrier that is affecting all of us. Change of weather patterns. It's now very difficult to predict. And some solutions like smart advisory can go a long way to advising farmers on what to do.
Definitely.
And then implementing smart agriculture technology. I think I've just seen from the SK show that it's about climate smart agriculture.
Yes.
Using implements even for plowing, like tractor implements. Instead of using disc plows, you use maybe another implement that will prevent the soil from being overturned, and that causes carbon sequestration, which will mean now loss of nutrients at some point. So the less you disturb the soil, the more you have nutrients in the soil. So using different farming implements and also using different types of fertilizer that also encourage macro organisms to thrive and to make farming much better and also increase output.
All right.
Yeah, correct.
Wow, lots of barriers right there.
Yeah.
A whole raft of it. Yeah?
There's a lot more.
I know,
can keep on going.
That's just the tip of the iceberg. So what we're going to do, we want to take a short break.
Yeah.
When we come back, one of the goals of Farm Kenya show is to be a solution-oriented show.
Yeah.
So as much as we have the barriers, we look at the barriers and we ask ourselves, how can we go through this barrier? So we take a break. When we come back, it's about conquering and some of the avenues that we can use to beat these barriers, including technology being at the core of some of these solutions. But for now, Farm Kenya takes a short break. We come back later.
Unalima ardhi, mlango wa